The Unparalleled Legacy of Africans in Global History, 1500 to 2025. From Slavery to Freedom, Economics, Politics, and Innovation Introduction. Honoring Black History Month is a time to reflect on the contributions, struggles, and triumphs of African and African-descended peoples across the world. From the era of transatlantic slavery to modern-day innovations, Africans have played vital roles in shaping global history, in politics, economics, science, culture, and social movements. This article seeks to honor those who have often been overlooked, presenting an accurate historical account of the African impact across continents and centuries. The era of slavery and the fight for freedom, 1500s, 1800s. 1. The transatlantic and trans-Saharan slave trades. The African slave trade dates back centuries, but its most devastating phase began in the 15th and 16th centuries with European colonial expansion. The transatlantic slave trade forcibly transported over 12 million Africans to the Americas between the 16th and 19th centuries. Africans were sold into slavery by European traders, sometimes aided by African intermediaries, in exchange for goods and weapons. Key dates. In 1441, the first recorded capture of Africans by Portuguese traders. 1619, the first enslaved Africans arrive in Jamestown, Virginia. 1807, Britain outlaws the transatlantic slave trade. 1808, the United States bans the transatlantic slave trade. 1888, Brazil, the last Western nation to abolish slavery, ends the practice. 2. African abolitionists and leaders who fought against slavery despite oppression. Africans resisted slavery and fought for their freedom. Some prominent leaders include Queen Zinga of Ndongo and Matamba, 1583 to 1663, Angola, resisted Portuguese colonial rule and defended her people against enslavement. Olaudah Equiano, 1745 to 1797, Nigeria, a formerly enslaved African who became a writer and abolitionist, influencing the abolition movement in Britain. Toussaint Louverture, 1743, 1803, Haiti, led the Haitian Revolution, resulting in the first free Black republic in 1804. Samuel Ajayi Crowther, 1809 to 1891, Nigeria, a former enslaved African who became the first Black Anglican bishop. 3. Abolition movements across continents. The abolition of slavery was a hard-fought battle, led by both Black and white activists. Key events include Haiti's independence, 1804, the first Black republic free from slavery, U.S. Emancipation Proclamation, 1863. President Abraham Lincoln declared the freedom of enslaved Africans, 13th Amendment, 1865. Abolished slavery in the United States. Africans in economics, politics, and science, 1800s to present. 1. Economic contributions and wealth creation despite historical oppression. Africans have played key roles in building economies. Marcus Garvey, 1887 to 1940, Jamaica, founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, and advocated for economic independence. Madam C.J. Walker, 1867 to 1919, USA, the first Black female self-made millionaire through the beauty industry. Aliko Dangote, 1957, Nigeria, Africa's richest man, transforming industrialization in Africa. 2. Political influence and leadership. Africans and people of African descent have led revolutions and governments worldwide. Kwame Nkrumah, 1909 to 1972, Ghana, led Ghana to independence in 1957, inspiring African liberation movements. Nelson Mandela, 1918 to 2013, South Africa, ended apartheid and became South Africa's first Black president in 1994. Barack Obama, being 1961, USA, the first Black U.S. president, 2009 to 2017. 3. African contributions to science and technology. African inventors and scientists have made groundbreaking discoveries. George Washington Carver, 1864 to 1943, USA, developed hundreds of products from peanuts, sweet potatoes, and other crops. Katherine Johnson, 1918 to 2020, USA, NASA mathematician whose calculations helped send astronauts to the moon. Philip Emeagwali, B. 1954, Nigeria, a pioneer in supercomputing and artificial intelligence. Dr. Thomas Mensah, B. 1950, Ghana, a key contributor to fiber optic technology. Unacknowledged African contributions to global progress, many Africans and Black innovators have been overlooked in history. Walter Rodney, 1942 to 1980, Guyana, author of How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, Analyzing Economic Exploitation. Hendrik Witbooi, 1830 to 1905, Namibia, led resistance against German colonial rule. Wangari Maathai, 1940 to 2011, Kenya, the first African woman to win the Nobel Peace Prize for environmental activism. Moving forward, diversity, equity, and global stability won. Addressing economic disparities strengthened African economies through industrialization and digital transformation. Encourage Black-owned businesses and economic self-sufficiency. Ensuring true political representation, advocate for more Black leaders in global politics. Address systemic racism and voter suppression worldwide. 3. Promoting global education and innovation, acknowledge Black contributions in school curriculums. Invest in STEAMs, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, and sport. Education for Black students. 4. The role of diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, in economic growth. Studies show that diverse workplaces drive economic success. Companies with diverse leadership perform 35% better than those without. Promoting inclusion ensures fair employment opportunities, equal access to wealth creation, cultural appreciation, and social harmony. Conclusion: a future built on justice and equality. The contributions of Africans and their descendants have been monumental in shaping world history. From leading abolition movements to pioneering economic, scientific, and political advancements, their impact is undeniable. Moving forward, achieving global stability requires recognizing and honoring Black contributions, implementing inclusive policies for economic growth, promoting equity and justice in all societies. Throughout history, individuals of African descent have made significant contributions to the fight for freedom, equality, and justice, both within the United States and globally. Their efforts have been pivotal in challenging oppressive systems and advocating for the rights of Black communities. Below is an overview of notable figures who have dedicated their lives to these causes. 1. African Americans in the United States, 1500 to 25. World War I and II veterans. The Harlem Hellfighters, 369th Infantry Regiment, an African American regiment in World War I. They spent 191 days in frontline trenches, more than any other American unit, and were renowned for their bravery. Despite facing segregation and discrimination, they proved instrumental in combat and were celebrated upon their return. Tuskegee Airmen, the first African-American military aviators in the U.S. Army Air Corps. They served with distinction during World War II. Their exemplary performance contributed to the eventual desegregation of the U.S. military. B. Civil rights activists. A. Philip Randolph, 1889 to 1979. A prominent labor leader and civil rights activist, Randolph organized the Brotherhood of Sleeping Car Porters, the first predominantly African-American labor union. He was a key figure in advocating for the desegregation of the armed forces and the March on Washington. Alice Dunbar Nelson, 1875 to 1935. A poet, journalist, and political activist, Dunbar Nelson promoted the military service of Black soldiers during World War I and was active in the women's suffrage movement. 2. Black Africans in global anti-colonial movements. African independence leaders. Kwame Nkrumah, 1909-1972. Born in Kofu, Gold Coast, now Ghana. Nkrumah led Ghana to independence from British colonial rule in 1957, becoming its first prime minister and later president. He was a staunch advocate for Pan-Africanism and played a significant role in the formation of the Organization of African Unity. Jomo Kenyatta, c. 1897 to 1978. Born in Gatundu, British East Africa, now Kenya, Kenyatta was a leading figure in Kenya's struggle for independence from British rule. He became the country's first prime minister in 1963 and its first president in 1964. Patrice Lumumba, 1925 to 1961. Born in Onalwa, Belgian Congo, now the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Lumumba was the first prime minister of the independent Congo in 1960. He was a central figure in the country's fight against colonialism. B. Unsung heroes. Anze Blouin, 1921 to 1986. Born in Bissau, French Equatorial Africa, now Central African Republic. Lewin was a political activist and advisor during the decolonization movements in Africa. She worked closely with leaders like Patrice Lumumba and was instrumental in advocating for women's rights and independence across the continent. 3. Contributions to voting rights and human rights. Marcus Garvey, 1887 to 1940. Born in St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica, Garvey was a proponent of Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism. He founded the Universal Negro Improvement Association, UNIA, and advocated for the global unity and economic empowerment of African descendants. His efforts laid the groundwork for future civil rights movements. Albert Luthuli, c. 1898 to 1967. Born near Bulawayo, Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, Luthuli was a South African teacher, activist, and politician. He served as president of the African National Congress, ANC, and was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1960 for his nonviolent struggle against apartheid. These individuals, among many others, have played crucial roles in challenging systemic oppression and advocating for the rights and freedoms of Black communities worldwide. Their sacrifices and contributions have left an indelible mark on history, inspiring future generations to continue the pursuit of equality and justice. 1. Harriet Tubman, c. 1822 to March 10th, 1913. The Moses of her people born, Dorchester County, Maryland, USA contribution. Tubman was a former enslaved African American who became a leading abolitionist, conductor of the Underground Railroad, and a Civil War spy. She rescued over 300 enslaved people, risking her life to lead them to freedom. Impact on freedom and activism. Advocated for women's suffrage. Served as a spy, nurse, and cook for the Union Army during the Civil War. First Black woman to lead an armed expedition. The Combahee River Raid, 1863, which freed more than 700 enslaved people. Abraham Lincoln, February 12th, 1809 to April 15th, 1865. The Emancipator born, Hardin County, Kentucky, USA. African ancestry allegations. Some researchers and historical theories suggest Lincoln had Ethiopian maternal ancestry, but this remains debated. Contribution. As the 16th President of the United States, Lincoln played a key role in the abolition of slavery. Impact on freedom and activism. Issued the Emancipation Proclamation, 1863, declaring enslaved Africans free in Confederate states. Pushed for and signed the 13th Amendment, 1865, which officially abolished slavery in the U.S. 3. Martin Luther King Jr., January 15, 1929 to April 4, 1968. The Dreamer born, Atlanta, Georgia, USA contribution. A Baptist minister and civil rights leader, King led nonviolent resistance against racial injustice. He was instrumental in securing civil rights for African Americans. Impact on freedom and activism. Led the Montgomery bus boycott, 1955 to 1956, after Rosa Parks' arrest. Organized the March on Washington, 1963, delivering the iconic I Have a Dream speech. Helped push the Civil Rights Act, 1964, and the Voting Rights Act, 1965. Won the Nobel Peace Prize, 1964, for his nonviolent resistance to racial injustice. 4. Malcolm X, May 19th, 1925 to February 21st, 1965. The Revolutionary Voice born, Omaha, Nebraska, USA contribution. A prominent Black nationalist, orator, and human rights activist, Malcolm X initially championed the Nation of Islam, NOI, and later evolved into a Pan-Africanist and advocate for self-defense and economic independence. Impact on freedom and activism. Promoted Black self-reliance and economic empowerment. Challenged the U.S. government's hypocrisy on human rights at the United Nations. After his pilgrimage to Mecca, 1964, he embraced a broader anti-racist and internationalist perspective. Assassinated in 1965, his ideas deeply influenced the Black Power movement. 5. Louis Farrakhan, born May 11th, 1933. The modern Black nationalist born, Bronx, New York, USA contribution. The leader of the Nation of Islam. NOI since the late 1970s, Farrakhan has been a vocal advocate for Black economic independence, social justice, and reparations. Impact on freedom and activism. Organized the Million Man March, 1995, in Washington, D.C., advocating for Black unity and self-determination. Promotes Black empowerment through education, business, and self-sufficiency. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, born October 29, 1938, made history as Africa's first elected female president, serving as the 24th president of Liberia from January 16, 2006 to January 22nd, 2018. Following Liberia's devastating civil wars, she led the country's post-war reconstruction, stabilizing the economy, securing international debt relief, and advocating for women's empowerment. Her leadership focused on peace building, democratic governance, and economic recovery, earning her global recognition. In 2011, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize alongside Lima Gbawi and Tawakkol Karman for their nonviolent struggle for women's safety and participation in peace efforts. Sirleaf's legacy is defined by her resilience, commitment to gender equality, and her role in restoring Liberia's global standing after years of conflict. George Manawia, born October 1st, 1966, is celebrated as one of Africa's greatest footballers, achieving an unprecedented feat in 1995 by winning the FIFA World Best Player, Ballon d'Or, African Best Player, and European Best Player awards, all in the same year, despite Liberia never qualifying for the FIFA World Cup. This African Liberian is a legendary genius footballer and will always be remembered globally. His legendary football career saw him play for top European clubs like AC Milan, Paris Saint-Germain, and Chelsea, bringing global recognition to Liberian football. Transitioning to politics, Ware served as senator for Montserrado County from 2015 to 2018, before being elected as president of Liberia on January 22nd, 2018, serving until 2024. His presidency focused on youth empowerment, infrastructure development, and economic reforms. His dual legacy as both a sports icon and a national leader continues to inspire youth across Africa and the world at large. Here are 20 top Black entertainers, athletes, entrepreneurs, and politicians who continue to shape the global narrative that diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI, are pathways to economic prosperity and national flourishing. 1. Entertainers and actors Oprah Winfrey, media mogul, philanthropist, and advocate for education and DEI initiatives. Tyler Perry, actor, filmmaker, and billionaire entrepreneur investing in Black storytelling. Viola Davis, Academy Award-winning actress advocating for racial and gender diversity in Hollywood. Denzel Washington, legendary actor supporting Black empowerment and scholarships. Lupita Nyong'o, Kenyan-Mexican actress promoting African culture and representation in cinema. 2. Singers and musicians Beyoncé, Grammy-winning artist and entrepreneur supporting Black-owned businesses and racial justice. Jay-Z, Sean Carter, rapper, billionaire entrepreneur, and advocate for criminal justice reform. Rihanna, Robin Fenty, musician and billionaire businesswoman behind Fenty Beauty, pioneering inclusive beauty products. Burna Boy, Nigerian Afrobeat superstar promoting African excellence globally. Kendrick Lamar, rap icon representing Black greatness. Drake, Aubrey Graham, rap icon bridging cultures between Black, Caribbean, and global audiences. 3. Athletes and sports icons LeBron James, NBA star and philanthropist investing in education for underprivileged communities. Serena Williams, tennis legend advocating for Black women in sports and business. Simone Biles, Olympic gymnast breaking barriers and speaking on mental health. Lewis Hamilton, Formula One champion and advocate for racial equality in motorsports. Kylian Mbappe, French soccer star of African descent promoting youth empowerment. 4. Entrepreneurs and politicians Robert F. Smith, billionaire investor and philanthropist funding HBCU scholarships. David Ajay, Ghanaian British architect designing iconic structures that celebrate Black history. Kamala Harris, U.S. Vice President, the first Black and South Asian woman in this role. Stacey Abrams, politician and voting rights activist championing racial equity and democracy. Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala, Director General of the World Trade Organization, WTO, leading global economic policy with a focus on African development. These individuals champion DEI through their industries, proving that inclusion fuels innovation, economic growth, and social progress worldwide. Conclusion. Their collective impact on freedom and equity, these figures, Tubman, Lincoln, King, Malcolm X, and Farrakhan, represent different phases of Black struggle. Resistance and escape from slavery, Harriet Tubman legal abolition of slavery, Abraham Lincoln civil rights and racial integration, Martin Luther King Jr. Black nationalism and economic independence. Malcolm X modern Black self-determination. Louis Farrakhan, their sacrifices, from escaping slavery to fighting laws that suppressed Black people, have reshaped the policies, voting rights, and economic opportunities of Black communities. Their legacies continue to inspire modern activism, equity movements, and Black excellence globally. As we celebrate Black History Month, let us commit to true peace, freedom, and wealth equality for all, regardless of race, history, or past injustices. Indeed, it was a wonderful journey with you today. Thank you for listening and watching this informational, educational, and historical facts video on Black history and Black excellence. I hope this information will cause you to rethink and maintain your beliefs being Black and proud. Additionally, we are not divided by color, but by the blindness of thought to recognize our origin as a human race. We are all the same. We breathe same air through our lungs and blood runs through our veins. We are born and we die. Therefore, holding together despite of race, social economic differences, or conditions, we can sustain and elevate humanity by having compassion, empathy, and by supporting one another. My name is Dr. Abraham P. DeTrench Kalon. Stay great as always.